Some scars never truly fade. They just lie dormant, waiting for their moment to speak. Welcome back. Today, we aren't talking about glittering crowns or royal galas. Instead, we're stepping into the shadows to the very moment Prince William and Prince Harry finally shattered decades of silence. What was powerful enough to make two princes lay bare their deepest grief for their mother, Princess Diana? What secrets were buried beneath those public smiles? Join me as we turn the pages of a chapter that has remained untold until now. After so many years of quiet reflection, they eventually discovered the courage to speak, not just about grief, but about growing up healing, and the comforting belief that their mother's spirit still guides them from a distance. And what about you? Have you ever gone through a loss that reshaped who you are and helped you become stronger the way William did? If you have, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss future videos filled with heartfelt and inspiring royal stories like this one. William once came across a file he was never meant to read. Yet the moment he opened it, his perception of the events surrounding that historic night in 1997 shifted in ways he had never imagined. Inside were overlooked notes, an unpublished document, and a series of unusual details that appeared to link Princess Diana's quiet concerns with individuals she had long placed her confidence in. The incident inside the Pont de l'Alma tunnel was remembered by many not only as a heartbreaking loss, but also as a moment surrounded by unanswered questions. Some viewed it as a tragic coincidence, others as a simple accident, while many felt there were layers the public might never fully understand. At approximately 12:25 a.m. in Paris, the car carrying Princess Diana, her companion Dodi Al-Fayed, bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, and driver Henri Paul collided with one of the tunnel's pillars. In a single instant, what had begun as an ordinary evening transformed into a sorrowful event that captured the attention of the entire world. The announcement traveled with astonishing speed by 4 a.m. Leading television networks throughout Europe and North America were breaking into their scheduled broadcasts to deliver the news of Princess Diana's passing. Outside Kensington Palace, crowds of grieving admirers gathered without pause. In less than 10 days, the sea of tribute flowers had risen to nearly 5 feet high, turning the gates into a powerful symbol of collective remembrance. Questions quickly followed. Why would Diana, known for being careful in public, have chosen not to fasten her seatbelt that night? Why were none of the tunnel's traffic cameras able to provide a clear record of the crash, and was driver Henri Paul truly impaired, as early reports suggested, when some observers later said he seemed composed? The official French investigation, released in 1999, concluded that Henri Paul had a blood alcohol level significantly above the legal limit and had also been taking prescription medication, findings that shaped the final public understanding of the incident. Yet conflicting details and the accounts of people who were there kept public curiosity alive, making it difficult for doubts to fully disappear. The princess's passing was not only a national shock, but also a deeply personal loss that left a lasting mark on Prince William. As the years moved forward, however, pieces of information that once seemed hidden gradually began to surface. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Diana's older sister, had maintained near-total silence for decades, but during a private family gathering in 2023, she chose to share her thoughts openly for the very first time. She shared that she had once been the person who introduced Diana to Prince Charles, long before history placed their names side by side. In fact, She herself had briefly dated Charles in earlier years. A light-hearted comment Sarah reportedly made at the time, saying she would not marry Charles no matter his position, quietly brought their own relationship to an end, and without anyone realizing it, then opened the door to a union that would later become one of the most talked about and complex marriages of its era. A private letter Princess Diana penned to her sister Sarah in 1993, later uncovered by William, brought several unsettling insights to light. In her words, she described the pain of being valued more as a public symbol than as a person who needed genuine affection. She compared her role to that of someone quietly bearing burdens for the sake of tradition and expectation. References to emotional distance, lingering tensions around close relationships, and a vague sense that difficult times were ahead left readers reflecting on the hidden pressures behind royal life. Sarah safeguarded the letter for 3 decades, its existence unknown, until William reached out himself seeking clarity about the past. More than a quarter of a century after Princess Diana's passing, the unanswered questions still linger not only among the public, but within the lives of her 2 sons as well. Whatever the full truth may ultimately reveal, one certainty endures: the princess's legacy continues to resonate, shaping conversations and memories even today. She stood not only as a global emblem of compassion, but also as the portrait of a devoted mother, a woman willing to live honestly, to love with courage, and to voice her inner truth despite the pressures around her. In a personal handwritten note to her sister, Sarah, Princess Diana reflected on emotional distance in her marriage, the complicated atmosphere surrounding Prince Charles, and the growing unease created by the constant attention around Camilla Parker Bowles. Sarah later acknowledged that she had not fully grasped the seriousness of those sentiments at the time, only understanding their weight in the years that followed a tragic turn of events. Sarah finally spoke out, not from guilt, but after a heartfelt talk with Prince William in early 2023. When he asked what his mother had shared that summer, she became emotional and gave him the long-kept letter. She admitted she once thought it wasn't important, but later realized it was. That brief exchange changed how William viewed the last years of his mother's life. For the first time, Prince William no longer viewed it as a single tragic accident, but as the result of a long chain of painful circumstances. At the heart of it was the emotional strain that deeply affected Princess Diana. The story, he realized, was shaped less by places and more by private tensions, quiet phone calls, discreet encounters, and the constant public attention surrounding Camilla Parker Bowles that followed Diana throughout those years. As early as 1980, when Princess Diana was only 19 and just stepping into preparations for royal life, the connection between Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles had not fully faded. Unease quietly grew in Diana's heart when only weeks after the wedding she came across personal photos, handwritten notes, and a bracelet marked with the initials GF, a private nickname that hinted at a bond she had not expected to find. That discovery left Princess Diana deeply shaken. In later private reflections, she spoke about how her eating struggles began around that time as stress quietly affected both her health and confidence. Living inside the vast halls of Buckingham Palace, she often described feeling isolated and emotionally unsupported despite the grandeur surrounding her. While Diana tried to endure her difficulties quietly, Prince Charles continued to balance public duties with complicated personal relationships, including ongoing attention around Camilla Parker Bowles. During this period, Diana's emotional distress was sometimes misunderstood, and she increasingly felt reduced to a public image, rather than recognized as a person with genuine feelings and vulnerabilities. It wasn't until her 1995 televised interview that Diana finally voiced what many had only whispered for years, delivering a line that echoed around the world. There were 3 people in the marriage, and the weight of that admission shook long-standing traditions. To the public, she appeared graceful and unshaken, yet behind the polished smile, she was fighting a quiet emotional storm. She later explained that her personal choices were less about romance and more about reclaiming a sense of identity, a reminder that even those surrounded by fame can struggle deeply to feel seen and valued. A trusted confidant once recalled her saying that if affection felt out of reach, she would at least command respect, a statement that revealed more vulnerability than anger. In 1994, when she stepped into the spotlight at the Serpentine Gallery wearing the sleek black dress that would later become legendary, the timing spoke volumes. That same night, a televised admission from Charles drew global attention, and her appearance instantly shifted the narrative. The outfit was more than style. It became a quiet declaration of confidence and self-possession, a visual reminder that dignity and poise can sometimes speak louder than any words. Even while projecting confidence before the world, Diana carried private heartache that few truly understood. In a 1996 note to her therapist, she described how constant public attention often left her emotionally drained, as if every camera flash asked more of her than she had to give. When she later crossed paths with Dodi Al-Fayed, it seemed less about romance and more about searching for peace and a brief refuge from relentless scrutiny. The chapter that followed became a solemn reminder that fame can magnify both light and shadow, and that behind every headline is a human story shaped by pressure, hope, and the universal need for understanding. That evening came to symbolize more than a single moment of turmoil. Many later viewed it as the culmination of difficult decisions, missed cautions, and unresolved tensions that had been building for years. What followed was not only shock, but a lingering quiet that seemed to settle over public life and royal corridors alike. By early 1996, Diana had gradually stopped molding herself to expectations that no longer fit who she was becoming. Her marriage to Charles, formally concluded after Queen Elizabeth II, encouraged both sides to move toward separation in late 1995, and the legal process reached its final chapter in August 1996, marking not just an end, but the beginning of a new, uncertain independence. After losing the title of princess and the shield of constant royal security, Diana stepped into a strange new spotlight. She appeared more independent and approachable, yet beneath that freedom lay a deep sense of exposure. The pressures she once endured quietly began to reshape her spirit. What started as sorrow slowly evolved into a determination to reclaim control of her own story. She stopped concealing her feelings, her public appearances, and even her frustrations. In journal entries written between January and May of 1997, she reflected on a powerful emotional journey moving from heartbreak and uncertainty toward a stronger, more defiant sense of self-worth and personal resolve. She began to speak openly about her desire to step into the media spotlight, win worldwide sympathy, and reshape how the public viewed the royal institution. Rather than waiting for formal invitations, she often arrived at public events on her own terms, instantly drawing cameras and headlines wherever she went. A trusted confidant later shared that she once described the intense media attention as the only tool I still control. What many dismissed as impulsive behavior gradually revealed itself to be something far more calculated, a thoughtful strategy carefully designed rather than driven by emotion alone. In June 1997, Diana organized a remarkable auction of 79 of her iconic gowns at Christie's in New York, raising more than $5.7 million for charities supporting people affected by AIDS and cancer. Beyond its charitable success, the event quietly symbolized a personal turning point, a graceful farewell to chapters of her life that no longer defined her. Only days later, she introduced the world to a new companion, Dodi Al-Fayed, son of Egyptian businessman Mohammed Al-Fayed. The unexpected announcement stirred intense public curiosity and lively debate, signaling that her story was entering an entirely new phase filled with change and bold independence. Images of Diana and Dodi relaxing aboard a yacht on the French Riviera circulated across newspapers and television screens within hours, turning a private getaway into a global spectacle. Observers noted that the timing seemed intentional, as if the photographs themselves carried a subtle statement about her newfound freedom and independence. By August 1997, the level of media attention surrounding her had intensified to an extraordinary degree, with reporters tracking nearly every move and rumor. Commentators at the time suggested that such relentless scrutiny reflected growing concerns about public perception and national image, highlighting how closely the lives of public figures and the power of the press had become intertwined. Some observers worried that Diana might choose a life far beyond Britain's borders, building a new future and making deeply personal decisions that would once again place her under the world's microscope. Aware of the constant attention surrounding her, she did not retreat from it. Instead, she met it with determination. In a private note dated late August, she expressed a simple but powerful resolve that her voice and her choices would remain her own no matter the pressure. This mindset marked a period of courage and self-assertion, showing a woman intent on shaping her own path rather than being defined by the expectations of others. The night of August 30th, 1997 marked a fateful journey from the Ritz Hotel to the Pont de l'Alma Tunnel, one defined by a string of puzzling decisions, lost moments, and a series of missteps that could have been avoided. Diana and Dodi had enjoyed a quiet dinner at the Ritz Paris, a luxury hotel owned by Dodi's family. The plan was to retreat to Dodi's nearby apartment just a few minutes away by car. However, the paparazzi had already been waiting outside the hotel for hours, relentless in their pursuit. In an attempt to throw off the press, a decoy car was sent out first, while Diana Dodi and bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones slipped out through a back exit. The car they chose for the ride was a 1990 Mercedes-Benz S280, driven by Henry Paul, the deputy head of security at the Ritz. According to hotel staff, Paul had indulged in 2 glasses of Ricard Pastis and at least 3 beers earlier that evening. Later tests revealed his blood alcohol level was over 1.75 grams per liter, more than 3 times the legal limit in France. Yet despite these concerning signs, Diana and Dodi trusted him behind the wheel. In a troubling twist, neither of them wore seatbelts, something unusual for Diana, who was typically known for her cautious approach to car safety. At approximately 12:20 a.m., the car began its journey entering the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, just 4 minutes later. What transpired inside that tunnel remains a subject of intense debate to this day. The Mercedes crashed violently into the 13th pillar, estimated to be traveling at a speed of 65 miles per hour, about 105 kilometers per hour. Dodi died instantly at the scene, while Henry Paul remained trapped behind the wheel. Trevor Rees-Jones sustained severe facial injuries, but against all odds survived the crash. Diana, still alive, was left trapped in the wreckage. Rescue workers later reported that she was conscious, whispering in pain as they tried to free her. Diana was extracted from the wreckage at 1 a.m., but instead of being immediately rushed to the hospital, she was treated at the scene for a full 40 minutes, a decision that has sparked controversy and is believed by many to have cost her a real chance at survival. Adding to the mystery surrounding the crash is the absence of any security footage. Despite the Pont de l'Alma tunnel being equipped with 14 cameras, none were operational that night. French authorities later explained that the system was outdated and crucially didn't record any images. To make matters worse, a traffic camera positioned directly above the tunnel was also malfunctioning that evening, leaving critical moments unrecorded. The absence of footage only deepened the suspicion surrounding the incident. In private notes later found by her son William, Diana had written in June 1997, "If I die in a car accident, check the cameras. That will be where the answers lie." Yet those cameras, crucial to uncovering the truth, were not functioning, leaving the questions unanswered. As the media spun various theories, William steadfastly rejected their explanations. Almost 3 decades later, in a quiet, determined investigation, he uncovered many long-buried truths hidden within classified files, shedding new light on the events that have haunted his family for so long. In 2004, the Metropolitan Police Service in London launched an official investigation called Operation Paget, led by Lord John Stevens, aimed at uncovering the truth behind Princess Diana's death. The investigation delved into over 175 allegations, interviewed more than 300 witnesses, and reviewed thousands of documents from both the UK and France. However, it wasn't until 2023 that Prince William, accessing the files, discovered a piece of evidence that would immediately capture his attention: a handwritten letter from his mother, Princess Diana, dated October 1993. The contents of that letter would prove to be a crucial part of the puzzle he was determined to solve. The letter, entrusted to her butler, Paul Burrell, contained a chilling message from Princess Diana: "My husband is planning an accident with my car. Brake failure and severe head injury." Diana believed that the motive behind this was to eliminate her and pave the way for Charles to marry the woman he loved, Camilla. At the time, many dismissed her words as the result of her deep fears and anxieties, but the details in the letter were unsettlingly specific and terrifying. In hindsight, those words now resonate with a haunting clarity. For 11 years, Mr. Burrell kept the letter hidden, only revealing it after Diana's death. Shockingly, it had never been included in the official royal files until William requested a review. As part of his investigation, William also revisited the claims made by Mohammed Al-Fayed, who had alleged that Diana and Dodi were being closely monitored. According to declassified documents, MI6 agents were active in Paris the night of the accident. One agent in particular was said to have recorded Diana's every move in real time, raising even more questions about the circumstances surrounding her tragic death. Even more shocking, many of these records were either deleted or blurred in the final public report access, to which William had to fight tirelessly to obtain. What do you think? Is this just a coincidence? Or is there something more being hidden? If you sense something suspicious at play, leave a 2 in the comments. If you believe it was simply a tragic accident, comment 5. And if you're as intrigued as we are in uncovering the truth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next updates on this unfolding journey. This is purely for reference purposes, only based on hypotheses and unverified rumors/public opinion. not baseless rumors, but an affirmation of boundaries. The dignity of the crown is not a commodity to be traded. Perhaps we are witnessing the most rigorous re-establishment of order in modern history, where every symbol of power must be placed in its proper position. According to several sources within the palace circles, a comprehensive dossier was compiled under the supervision of two figures embodying discipline, one a devoted steward of tradition, and the other a future successor. The subject of this review was an entity known as the distant Arrowwell, where inexplicable loopholes exist. The hypothesis is, how can an organization facing a severe financial downturn, according to publicly available financial reports, a decline of allegedly $11 million, still organize ceremonial trips to countries like Nigeria or Colombia? Data from U.S. regulatory agencies raises questions about inconsistencies in financial compliance. While meager renewal fees of a few $100s were overlooked, preferential diplomatic privileges, from special visas to military escorts, were extensively utilized. The question arises, is this independent philanthropy, or is it a case of borrowing the spotlight to pursue private agendas? Meanwhile, the contrast is more stark than ever when considering the Welsh successor. Foreign press outlets have questioned the differences in his governing style. H. On one side is the commitment of dozens of actual working days for each project. On the other is the controversial figure an average of 60 minutes per week for a philanthropic empire. In conclusion, the question for the timeline is, the crown cannot float on private trips. This statement seems to be directed not just at an individual, but a message to the future about the integrity of institutions. As clarification letters are drafted and titles face the risk of being frozen in commercial activity, we realize a conflict of life philosophies, quiet discipline or ostentatious display. The truth probably still lies in the secret archives in London and California. And what do you see behind these plummeting financial figures and ceremonial trips? Is this an attempt to protect heritage or a ruthless purge by the system? In the world of symbols, the difference sometimes lies not in words, but in how a person presents themselves. Legend in London recounts that the image of a royal woman silently standing in the rain all afternoon to fulfill her duties became the benchmark for the concept of service. It creates a stark contrast to modern branding thinking. It seems that in the corridors of Buckingham Palace, a philosophical question is being posed. Does the value of a title lie in quiet sacrifice or in the ability to self-promote in flamboyant photographs? According to internal sources, what is unfolding is not a noisy legal prosecution, but rather the re-establishment of a blurred border. Royal investigators, in collaboration with transatlantic regulators, are tracing an undeniable lead, a financial trail. J. The hypothesis put forward by insiders is an entity cannot survive indefinitely under the shadow of a crown if it is rotting from within. The astonishing decline. From a peak of $13 million in 2021, the donation flow appears to have bottomed out, falling below $500,000 in 2022. The silent freeze. Quiet staff cuts and the absence of substantive projects in 2024 paint a picture of instability. There is a strange contradiction that observers are questioning. How could an organization aiming for global influence forget a $200 renewal fee in California? For the palace, this wasn't just a technical misstep, it was a breakpoint in credibility. If an organization can't manage the smallest numbers, are they qualified to operate the vast diplomatic privileges? For the past 6 years, the palace has chosen to whisper about its differences. But on January 29th, perhaps they chose a different approach document and publicize. The message is clear. You can run a business, you can tour, but you can't use the halo of the crown to fuel your personal machine. In the world of ceremonies, contradictions are considered unacceptable. Two realities seem to exist simultaneously. On one side, the glitzy scenes of visits to orphanages and handshakes with national leaders under the guise of humanitarianism. And on the other, the stark numbers on paper alarming a lack of transparency. Observers question, is it fair for an organization struggling with legal issues to continue using royal protocol as a passport to project an image of power? Legends about royal discipline often mention a woman willing to sleep in dilapidated shipping containers in disaster-stricken areas just to avoid attention. For her, humanitarianism was a sacrifice, not a performance. According to some sources from closed-door meetings, a powerful statement was uttered, shaking the palace corridors. Humanitarianism is not an outfit you put on when you go abroad. It is a ledger that you must balance publicly and honestly. Kai. This is not just a reprimand, but a declaration of integrity. Perhaps the palace wants to assert that public support doesn't come from beautiful photos, but from transparency in every penny donated. For years, the palace's silence was seen as an act of tolerance for private lives. But as legal obstacles and delays in response from Archewell increased, that tolerance reached its limit. The hypothesis widely accepted by analysts is that the palace no longer views this as a personal branding issue. It has transformed into a rigorous internal compliance investigation. When an organization comes under scrutiny by U.S. regulators, being in the shadow of the crown is no longer a privilege, but a risk to its millennia-old heritage. Enough. A short word, yet one that carries the weight of an entire institution. The agreement between the Crown Prince and his aunt has put an end to an era of harmless misunderstandings. The question facing us now is, can a humanitarian organization sustain itself without core discipline and transparency? And when the velvet curtain of diplomatic priorities is lifted, what will remain behind the glamorous trips? Let's wait for further developments from the legal documents that are about to be released. Although no legal ruling has been issued yet in the world of heritage, reputational damage is sometimes more devastating than a court verdict. R. The young crown prince seems to have realized a harsh truth. Public trust is a finite asset. According to a senior advisor, the issue isn't just about numbers, but about transparency in fundraising. A troubling question arises if donors believe they are contributing to a royal value. But this is not actually the case. Are we facing a scenario of misrepresentation? While internal investigations are intensifying, another front has emerged: the forum of public opinion. On the opposite side, a subtle campaign was launched. It was a masterful blend of imagery of vulnerability and pronouncements of heritage. Insiders suggest this was an attempt to blur the lines between individual ego and the millennia-old dynasty. The use of lofty titles or stylized crown imagery under the international spotlight raises questions about a deliberate confusion. At an event in Nigeria, when sponsors described themselves using the global titles of the House of Windsor, a serious disconnect from reality began to emerge. Princess Anne, with her keen insight, outlined a chilling definition. There are accidental misunderstandings, and there are orchestrated misunderstandings. A special audit of language revealed astonishing figures. Over 60% of the entity's media materials used language that misled the public into believing in official palace approval. Technically, it might not have violated the law, but in the world of honor, it broke something far more important: trust. The palace drew its final line with a weighty silence. Now, the initiative lies with those who stand outside the barriers of tradition. Can a brand survive by borrowing the glory of the past, or must it stand firmly on its own transparent feet? And in the clash between silent duty and image campaigns, whose name will history choose to remember? The answer remains open. And do you side with strict discipline, or the freedom to shape your brand, share your perspective, so we can decipher the next chapters of this play of thrones? Behind closed doors, royal staff began to notice a new concept emerging: a parallel monarchy. According to a confidential internal memo, concerns were mounting on long-delayed audio and visual projects. Were behind-the-scenes footage from Windsor or memories from Frogmore Cottage being re-edited to serve a deeply personal agenda? As hashtags for a modern monarchy proliferated on social media, one wondered, can a heritage be celebrated when its core principles are disregarded? According to reports from informed sources, the first cracks appeared within the operational team itself. Several former employees operating in anonymity described a tense environment with vague instructions. We were asked to create projects of royal stature, but there were no clear boundaries to follow. This ambiguity appeared to be a carefully calculated tactic. The arrangement of diplomatic ceremonies, such as military escorts or flag displays in partner countries, which didn't fully understand the couple's changing status, created a perfect gray area. Their prestige was maintained without the need for any formal representation. Princess Anne, with her usual ironclad stance, is said to have made a sharp remark: one cannot honor an institution while actively rejecting its rules. That is marketing, not memory. For the palace, this systematic confusion had reached the limit of its tolerance. Perhaps this is why the Prince of Wales began considering a more drastic solution, establishing legal boundaries for titles. Completely stripping the title is a sensitive issue, but limiting its use in fundraising campaigns is a possibility being seriously considered. A disclaimer might be the next step to protect the integrity of the crown. What do you think of this gray area tactic? Is this a clever adaptation in the digital age? In the discreet discussions at the palace, the ultimate goal established is not confrontation, but protection. A powerful viewpoint was shared. The system has rules because it carries responsibility. If those rules become optional, then the value of the institution will disappear. This steadfastness seems to stem not only from disciplined individuals like Princess Anne, but also from the quiet yet resolute support of the Princess of Wales. For them, this is a battle to protect public trust, the most valuable asset that no marketing campaign can buy. According to reputable media outlets, the atmosphere in Britain is shifting from curiosity to a state of profound weariness. Commentators are beginning to question a paradox. How can one consistently criticize the system while simultaneously exploiting its closeness? A sharp remark in the Times has become a focal point of attention. You cannot both deny the crown and wear its jewels in the same sentence. The public is not blind, and damage to trust is cumulative. You. Instead of being caught up in noisy controversies, Buckingham Palace seems to have chosen a different path, the presence of quiet action. A series of short documentary clips have been released not for ostentation, but to remind us of enduring dedication, Princess Anne. With her decades-long journey with Save the Children, Princess Catherine with her profound contributions to the development of future generations, Prince Edward with his unwavering connections across the Commonwealth. The message behind these films is clear: true legacy is built over time, and with commitment not on flashy headlines. The final hypothesis we need to consider: when the media frenzy dies down, what remains brilliant yet fragile personal brands good? Is it an institution that stands firm thanks to discipline and self-respect? Quiet service, though unassuming, always seems to find a way to be recognized. According to opinion polls from late 2025, a strong wave of confidence has swept over those who keep the flame of tradition burning. Support for Princess Anne and Princess Catherine reached record highs of 74% and 82%, respectively. Conversely, confidence in the Sussex couple has reportedly plummeted in both the UK and Canada. What began as questions about their financial records has now officially become a global reputational cleansing. The real turning point came on the morning of January 19, 2026. In an almost unprecedented event, the royal keeper of discipline, Princess Anne, appeared before the press. Not to attend a ceremony, but to announce a truth. Her presence alongside legal experts and the ethics committee was proof that silence had reached its limit. With a calm yet powerful demeanor, Princess Anne offered a sharp definition of the institution's existence. The crown's duty is to serve, not to impose, to protect, not to exploit. In that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath as she announced the conclusions of her comprehensive investigation into the Archewell entity. No longer vague theories, the report revealed a shocking truth. There was significant overlap between funds raised in the name of the royal family and their use for purposes completely unrelated to the public good. Cameras flashed, files were opened, and a new line was drawn. This is not just a family story, but a lesson in integrity in the age of digital media. What do you think of this decisive action by the palace? Is this a necessary step to salvage public trust? Or will it usher in a new turbulent chapter in the relationship between members of the royal family? Let's pause here before we delve into the transatlantic legal rifts. Looking at this contrast, what kind of person do you think the character we are analyzing is? Please leave. Comment number 2. If you see this as an image of freedom and the effort to change old values, or leave a comment. Comment number 5. If you feel this is just a personal branding strategy lacking consistency, your feedback is a piece of the puzzle that helps us complete this overall picture. And don't forget to click like, also subscribe to the channel. Watch now to avoid missing the next shocking developments in our series on deciphering the throne. G. Princess Anne's words resonated not only within the historic chambers of St. James's Palace, but also created a global psychological earthquake. It seems this is no longer a story about dry accounting numbers, but a direct indictment of value erosion. Inconsistencies are brought to light: anonymous donations, private flights disguised as charitable initiatives, and a dangerously blurred line between non-profit organizations and commercial production machinery. Although no names were explicitly mentioned, the message was as clear as a decree. All instances of using the royal name for personal gain must cease immediately. Less than 24 hours later, from across the ocean, a stark contrast emerged. Amidst the sun-drenched, leafy landscape of California, an online discussion became the stage for a subtly veiled response. Analysts have observed that a subtle shift in style. There are no financial explanations, no mention of the trip to Nigeria, or any prestigious titles. Instead, it's a familiar scenario of women rising above outdated structures. Maybe putting oneself in the victim's position is a last-ditch effort to protect a brand already shaky in the face of irrefutable evidence. The silence regarding specific figures from California. Seemingly, this statement carried more weight than any rebuttal. In Commonwealth countries, from Canada to New Zealand, a new sense of caution was established. In particular, the statement from Nigerian officials encapsulated the general sentiment of international public opinion: "We welcome cooperation in good faith." But if that goodwill is turned into a marketing tool, we need a satisfactory answer. As questions began to swirl about, who is the real spokesperson for the monarchy? Princess Anne concluded her speech with quiet pride. It seems the world has recognized the difference between those who serve with the lens and those who serve with real hands. The 67% public support for the palace's rigidity is irrefutable proof. H. This is no longer a step backward, but a deliberate reform. On January 22, 2026, a historic document was born, Charter of Transparency, under the leadership of Prince William. This charter acts as a tight net, sealing off areas that insiders believe have long been exploited. Every visit requires written authorization. There is no room for superficiality or unclear status. All funds raised in the name of the monarchy must undergo an independent audit every 2 years in the UK. Any media project involving royalty must publicly disclose its profit model. Service cannot be used as a sales slogan. Service is not a slogan. It's a standard. William's assertion set a final limit for anyone wishing to act on behalf of the family. The reaction was almost immediate. Within just 14 days of the request for financial clarification being sent, a legal battle erupted. According to sources, a legal team from California has filed a preemptive lawsuit accusing the palace of interfering with charitable activities and damaging its reputation. At the same time, on the stage of the Women's Summit, a familiar figure appeared. Dressed in a calm, neutral outfit, sharp words were delivered. The hypothesis is this an attempt to protect individual freedoms or a tactic to create chaos in the face of London's demands for transparency? In California, amidst applause from supporters, a deeply humane message was delivered. The world needs compassion, not control. It seems this was an attempt to shift public attention from dry audit figures to issues of identity and emotion. By focusing on systemic barriers for women of color, the speech skillfully created a veil over the key questions. Observers note that throughout the conversation there was no explanation of the Archewell entity's financial records, nor any mention of privileges in Nigeria. Silence in the face of irrefutable evidence. The question is, it is essentially a defensive tactic using words. T. Recently, international forums have been buzzing with theories regarding a tactical shift from the California side. Instead of directly addressing questions about cash flow or the reports from Nigeria, we are seeing the emergence of a new concept: compassion versus control. Unverified sources suggest that the focus on emotional language and the narrative of a woman of color taking on the institution is an effort to shift the focus from material evidence to personal identity. Is this the voice of freedom or a scripted fantasy staged to obscure the gaps in financial reports? Let's analyze the following theories. Why is public opinion so sharply divided? While traditional Western media outlets praise an icon of poise, British newspapers like The Telegraph and Daily Mail raise chilling questions. Where is the line between a royal brand and an operation spiraling out of control? The secret lies in these things. Don't say it out loud. The palace's silence regarding the investigation and accounts related to the Archewell entity is becoming a difficult puzzle for those in the know. Is there a secret behind Princess Catherine's quiet appearances at grassroots charities? If the other side's strategy was explosive speeches, then Catherine and William seem to be sending a message through presence. Commentators have noted a shift. No cameras, no press releases, just consistent service. One theory is that the palace is deliberately building a completely opposite image: fewer extravagant trips, a greater focus on local life, as a way to affirm the standard of genuine service. Returning to developments in Nigeria, a statement from the country's foreign ministry caused a minor upheaval. There appears to have been a misunderstanding regarding legal status during the visit in May 2025. There are reports suggesting that a private organization facilitated this trip without coordination through official diplomatic channels. If this is true, then the royal title was used as a marketing tool rather than a diplomatic mission. This is a challenging assumption for anyone who believes in the rigor of international standards. When the records were reviewed, a shameful reality emerged. Seemingly, the truth has been revealed. An educational institution in Africa has issued a shocking statement claiming they were misled into believing in a non-existent royal connection. Is there a secret behind Fortune 500 corporations immediately freezing millions of dollars in committed funds? There are unverified sources claiming that this is not just a media mishap, but a break point in reputation that no marketing campaign can salvage. Let's analyze the hypothesis of those fateful 14 days. When the deadline passed in silence with no audit, no apology, public opinion began to ask, is this silence a dignified choice or a deadlock in the face of irrefutable evidence? Instead of arguing, the palace responded with an action that spoke louder than 1,000 words: silent erasure, a short update on the official website. Seemingly, this marked the end of a global brand. Harry and Meghan now face a new reality, one where the protection of the royal gray zone has completely vanished. This is not just a matter of ethics, but a matter of heritage. As one historian observed, we are witnessing William and Anne recreating an institution right in the midst of modern-day scandals. When the last remaining ties are broken, even the most glamorous film projects can be ruined. Seemingly, it fell into a state of legal freeze. Meanwhile, look at the symbolic contrast. A woman without a crown, without designer clothes, wearing only an old silver pendant, silently holding the hands of children battling illness. The hypothesis is, are the public seeking the glamour of the stars or the genuine presence of compassion? The space between privilege and independence that the Sussex couple once embraced has now officially ceased to exist. According to opinion polls, an astonishing consensus of 87% has been established. The final act is not a noisy trial, but a quiet erasure from the timeline of history. That silence speaks volumes more than any scandal. This is just a fictional scenario based on controversial events, but it offers a profound lesson. Power may come from titles, but a legacy is built only through transparency and service. This information is for reference only based on unverified hypotheses and rumors/public opinions. Let's discuss this issue from an objective analytical perspective. The ultimate truth may still remain behind closed doors. And you, which side are you on in this symbolic battle? Press 1. If you believe in the rise of new norms, or 0 if you remain skeptical about these changes. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue to unravel the mysteries. F. In a world of rigid rituals, composure is not merely a virtue, but a mask. The world sees in the successor a symbol of steadfastness, a man forged to bear the weight of an entire institution on his shoulders. But when the spotlight fades, when the laughter of children fades into sleep, only the grim confrontation with the ghosts of the past remains. There is an invisible boundary between duty and ego. By day, he is the future king with a perfect smile. But when night falls, he is just a son searching for the missing pieces of his mother's memories. The silence in Kensington Palace is not peace, but a peculiar kind of sound, the echo of things never allowed to be spoken. Imagine a secret drawer holding a time-worn wooden box. Inside, not treasure, but a tiny, fragile hospital bracelet, so delicate that a single strong breath could make it vanish. The inscriptions have faded, but in the mind of its keeper, they burn brightly like a confession. This is not just a keepsake, it is silent witnesses, for a presence erased from official records. A chapter in history torn out, a soul forced to exist as a shadow on the margins of the dynasty. Why was an existence considered a threat? Why was the truth protected by such a thick layer of silence? I promise you, Mother, I will always seek the truth. The whispered words of the woman embodying the symbol of the English rose were not merely a piece of advice, but a promise. Spiritual covenant. Diana left behind not just memories, she left behind an unfinished journey. Her late-night handwritten letters contained no dry political secrets, but rather the vibrational frequencies of pain and genuine longing. William wasn't just reading words, he was reading wounds. When his pen touched the white page in the darkness of night, that's when the flow of truth began to break through the dam of silence that had lasted for decades. You were never destined to be forgotten. That sentence was a liberation, a flash of lightning tearing through the fog that enveloped the royal family. When dawn painted the London sky pink, the letter was sealed. The secret may remain, but the burden in our hearts has been shared on the page. History may be written by the victors, but the truth is preserved by hearts unwilling to forget. Behind the silent corridors, a new story has begun to be told, not through press releases, but through the awakening of a promise from the past. There is a sound more terrifying than noise, and that is a choice of silence. After the palace's light source departed, it was not just an architectural structure, but had become a labyrinth of echoes. Every hallway, every hidden corner seemed to be whispering about something stripped away from the mainstream timeline. William, in the form of a child, but with the mindset of a silent observer, began to realize that the world he lived in was built on layers of coded secrets. He remembered his mother's warmth, but more than that, he was haunted by the blank spaces in her stories. Let's rewind to a moment in the past where a clandestine conversation completely altered the perspective of the young heir. In a secluded room where the light was barely enough to illuminate sadness, an unprecedented concept emerged: existence is obscured. They think I'll forget, but she's also a part of my flesh and blood. That statement wasn't just a confession. It was a crack on the perfect wall of the dynasty. In the language of the keepers of secrets, the phrase kid. Here it may not just be a flesh and blood character, but a symbol of all that is most authentic, which has been forced to disappear in order to preserve a common order. You see, why would a mother have to speak of her child as a ghost in her dreams? Was a chapter of history torn apart from the moment it was written, William stood there, caught between curiosity and self-preservation. He felt an electric current of fear, not fear of a tangible force, but fear of the price of truth. The next morning, everything returned to its perfect course. Pancake smiles questions about schoolwork. But behind those sparkling eyes, she left behind a secret, spiritual testament for my son. At this point, you're probably feeling just as emotional as William is. What do you think about a sacred truth like motherhood being considered a mistake that needs to be erased? Stop for 3 seconds to click. Like, if you support William's journey, don't forget to leave a comment. Will you choose truth or the peace of the dynasty? Let's move on to the most dramatic part. Instead of defending the throne, William chose to heal history through empathy. Amidst the meticulously planned schedules, he recognized the truth's white space, haunting the stormy eyes of a mother and unaddressed letters sent to a hidden reality. It's the intersection of a life dazzling under the flashing lights and a silent world of royal secrets. A clue emerges from an old book, a photograph of a tiny creature in pink with the inscription, "My darling child." It wasn't just a sweet word, it was a parental certificate. Written with pain, Diana bequeathed a legacy of doubt to her son, believing that the truth, like a flowing stream, would eventually find its way through the cracks of silence. The 1997 funeral left behind eternal silence and unanswered questions. William grew up tormented by a name erased from the family tree, a soul forced into absolute anonymity. He realized his mother's grief was not just a broken marriage, but a deeper sorrow. Systemic loss. J. As the future king begins to question the gaps, the truth begins to find its way back to the light. The truth no longer lies dormant within the old pages. When the future king decides to confront the darkness, instead of accepting silence, history turns a new page. In his childhood room, William realizes that his mother's tears from years ago were not for power, but for a love locked away. She chose silence, bearing the most cruel pain to protect a fragile life from the storm of the political system. The whispered, "I understand, mother," became a new pact. William would not only preserve the crown, but also rescue the buried truth to protect his mother's dignity. Meanwhile, at Anmer Hall, Kate inadvertently stumbled upon the code of the past. Amidst the scent of cedar and thyme, a wooden box engraved with the letter D appeared. It was not merely a memento, it was a satellite of memory, a spiritual testament patiently awaiting the moment of deciphering to heal the cracks of history. The wooden box is no longer an old object. It is a memory satellite, ending decades of silence. When Kate touched the broken lock, the hinge of history creaked, shattering the darkness to decipher a love once considered impossible. Diana's soft, slanted handwriting emerged an extraordinary inner strength hidden beneath a gentle exterior. Kate realized she wasn't just holding a book, but a treasure. Forgotten heartbeat of the entire dynasty. William walked in, and the line between the future king and his son blurred. Before him was Land of Souls, my mother's. The worn old leather cover under trembling hands became a mirror reflecting pains that were never named. The 1979 page was just the prelude to an abyss that lay ahead. The words from June 1980 appeared like a cut into reality, a deliberate disappearance. They said she didn't make it, but my heart doesn't believe them. This is a mother's indictment against the rigidity of rule, a cry suppressed to preserve a facade of false perfection. Royal power has been established. Order up humanity, each word was like a tsunami sweeping through William's beliefs. He realized that his sister was not an illusion, but a real person. Existence was wiped out. This is the command of the bloodline. The truth has finally found its way back. He realized that the girl in the pink photograph from years ago was not an illusion of sadness, but a real person. Existence was wiped out by those who hold the rules of the game. This is the moment when truth is no longer an option, but a command ingrained in their blood. As the heir to the crown confronts the dried tears on the old page, history has officially turned a new page. Truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way back to those who deserve it. Kelly. In the quiet solitude of the attic, time seemed to stand still. As William turned the pale, leather-bound pages, he wasn't just reading a diary. He was stepping into the dark side of kingship, where the most genuine emotions are forced to give way to the glitz and glamour of the institution. The August 1980 inscription appears like a wound still bleeding. This is not a dry royal document. This is the beating of a silently broken heart. Diana, the woman of light, had to hide the abyss of the soul. Behind his iconic smile, the words written about loneliness amidst dazzling gold make us question, does the price of the crown include sacrificing the right to suffer? A shocking truth is revealed through the trembling handwriting, the existence of a blood match never been named before. I heard the first cries, and then silence. In the language of truth seekers, this is a historical question. It was haunting. They told her to forget about it, calling it a tragedy that needed to be sealed away to protect the stability of the monarchy. But how can political rules be used to suppress a mother's instincts? William stared at the two words. Daughter. His breath caught in his chest. This wasn't just baseless rumors or cheap conspiracy theories. This was spiritual frequency. It is the diary of a woman asserting her presence erased from official records. The diary ends abruptly, just before a wedding of the century. A blank page, a cruel, symbolic silence. Was that the moment when individual voices were swallowed up by the machine of duty? William, a man who had always remained calm in the face of adversity, now found himself insignificant before the weight of truth. He realized that his mother's legacy was not just her title or her kindness, but also the journey of decoding. It was incredibly painful. Kate, with her profound empathy, became his strongest support as he faced this awakening. She understood that to heal the future, one had to confront wounds from the past that had never been allowed to heal. This changes everything. William's words were not merely an admission. They marked the beginning of a surgical excavation of memory. He was no longer just an heir to the throne, he had become a guardian of buried truths. Truth, even when hidden behind thick stone walls or buried under layers of time, possesses a fierce vitality of its own. And when Diana's whispers finally found someone willing to listen, that was the moment justice began to take shape, not through legal decree, but through empathy and love. In the twilight shadows stretching across the attic's wooden floor, the silence no longer carried the heavy weight of suspicion. It had become a sacred silence. When Kate spoke softly about Diana wanting her son to find the truth, she wasn't just offering comfort, she was reaffirming a new definition of motherhood. William gazed into the distance, where a brilliant golden light was trying to cling to its last moments before fading into the darkness. He realized that his mother wasn't alone in her grief. She had chosen solitude to live, love privacy. Her bearing this secret alone was not a sign of weakness, but a silent sacrifice to protect what she considered most precious, even though it defied all royal conventions. The moment the wooden box was closed, the creaking of the hinges was like a farewell to the sorrows of the past. A small, fragile object, yet it contained a secret. Historical volume, enormous something no speech or ceremony could fully describe. William looked at the box as if looking into a memory satellite. It has finally returned to the right track. She always follows her heart even when it leads to suffering. G. This quote is not only a summary of Diana's life, but also a message. Decoding psychology. Profound. A heart, when placed above rules, sometimes creates cracks, but it is through these cracks that the light of truth can penetrate. As the two descend the stairs hand in hand, with the box pressed against their chests, it is a symbolic image of healing generational rifts. William's whispered words, "I found Mom." It's not about finding a silhouette, but about finding actual frequency in my mother's soul. The truth, though shocking, possesses a miraculous power. It draws people closer together than ever before. The palace walls may remain silent, but the atmosphere inside has changed. It is no longer a terrifying mystery, but a sense of connection. The serenity of understanding. Night fell at Anmer Hall. In the drawing room, only the ticking of time and the flickering light from glowing embers remained. Prince William sat there motionless, but deep in thought. His tea had long since gone cold like the rigid rules of the past, but the fire within him was beginning to burn in a different way. He no longer saw just the public image of Princess Diana. He saw the woman of enigmas. And in the stillness of the night, he knew that his task now was to protect that truth, not by revealing it to the world, but by preserving it as an indelible part of his family's soul. At Anmer Hall, while darkness enveloped the room where Kate had fallen asleep after her fairy tales, William's mind entered another reality. The journal was not merely a collection of pages, it was a seismic center that completely reshaped the system of values he had once trusted. Everything around him seemed to shift in color. Even the innocent laughter of his children now carried a fragile echo, a reminder that the perfect world they lived in might be built upon historical voids. William understood that there are truths a crown cannot shield, and questions that only a son has the right to pursue in search of answers. With no advisors, no press releases, and no support from the vast palace machinery, William chose a path of absolute privacy. He stepped out of the role of a future king to become a detective of memory. In his private study, the ticking of the clock seemed to mark the rhythm of secret conversations. His voice retained the calm of a soldier, yet the trembling of his hands as he held the receiver betrayed the turmoil within. He is searching for the firekeepers of the 1980s, those who stood at a crossroads of history, yet chose silence to preserve the peace of the dynasty. Amid refusals and fading memories, one name begins to emerge as a coordinate of destiny: Alice Hampton. In the language of hypotheses, she is not merely a midwife, she is a guardian, standing at the threshold between existence and disappearance. Pause for a moment. How does this character make you feel? A man carries the weight of an entire dynasty on his shoulders, yet remains steadfast in his search for justice for those he loves. If you feel moved and admire his courage, leave a comment with the number 2. If you hold a different perspective or feel this character is too reckless, leave the number 5. Don't forget to tap like and subscribe right now so you don't miss the next dramatic chapters in this journey of uncovering hidden truths. Alice, who once worked in the most sensitive areas of the royal family, is now a quiet figure on the Devon coast. She carries with her the secret of a frequency of kinship. It had been cut off decades ago. A meeting under a false identity had been arranged, a scenario even the most thrilling movies couldn't have imagined. William was heading toward the sea, where the Devon waves might be pushing the last fragments of truth ashore. He wasn't looking for a scandal. He was looking for healing the past. Will Alice Hampton be the one to open the final door? Or will she merely be a tombkeeper for secrets sealed by time? This journey is not just about discovering a hidden sister, but about William rediscovering the true image of his mother, a woman who loved painfully in absolute solitude. The trip to Devon is not merely a geographical journey, but a journey back in time. Before William, the English countryside stretches out like a painting of memories he has never had the chance to fully experience. The mother's whispered words from years ago, "One day you will understand." It had now become a compass leading him to a small house where the salty scent of the sea mingled with the silence of secrets guarded for half a lifetime. Alice Hampton opened the door bearing the appearance of someone who had spent her life learning to be silent. Her eyes held not surprise but the relief of someone who knew that, the frequency of truth. Finally, the recipient has been found. Beside the old wooden table under the sunlight filtering through the lace curtains, a cursed chapter of history begins to unfold. Your mother was too kind for what they did to her. Alice's words were like a bolt of lightning striking the silence. In the language of those who stand in the shadows of power, they are not specific individuals, but a vast privileged apparatus. Order, rather, humanity. The truth emerges more painful and stark than any script. William was not the first life Diana brought into this world. A hidden chapter of history. The moment of birth is hidden. This happened in the early 1980s. Because of strict regulations and because the world wasn't ready, that life was considered a mistake that needed to be corrected. Tut the bit. A baby girl, a sister, an existence snatched from her mother's arms the moment she uttered her first cry. William felt as though his heart were being crushed under the weight of the truth. Diana had not only battled the press or the loneliness of the monarchy, she had battled a compulsory loss. Her screams that year were silenced by tranquilizers, but a mother's faith was never extinguished. Pause for a moment. What are your feelings towards this character? A man who carries the burden of an entire kingdom on his shoulders, yet remains steadfast in his pursuit of justice for his family. Now, William understood why his mother's grief had such a metaphysical depth. It wasn't the grief of a broken marriage, but the pain of a part of the soul that has been taken away. The truth, something that was never supposed to leave the palace's stone walls, had now been carried by the Devon sea breeze into the heir's mind. Standing before the vast horizon, William realized that the glamorous world he represented had taken more from him than freedom it had taken a part of his bloodline. The waves crashing against the shore echoed the cries of the past cries that history had refused to acknowledge. That night in his study, when he opened the diary once more, William no longer saw the dry words. He saw his mother's silent tears. Her words in the diary, "I still feel like my mother is out there somewhere." It now takes on a whole new meaning. William not only finds his mother in the pages of a book, he has found the most sacred mission of his life, to find his sister hidden by time and cold rules. William has realized a harsh truth. Silence doesn't come naturally, it is created. Design. Issei. Every deleted record, every changed name, every lost file, each brick carefully laid to build a wall around the truth. The world saw a prince who had it all: power, fame, and a perfect family. But behind the smiles for the cameras lay the weight of a parallel reality. William didn't just live for himself. He carried a burden on his shoulders. The ghost of two women. The mother passed away with a broken heart, and the younger sister was never allowed to exist in history. In the study filled with the gentle sound of falling rain, Kate's arrival was like a haven of peace amidst a storm. She saw not just a future king, she saw a man being ravaged by the weight of secrets. He can't handle this alone. Kate's words were not just comforting, they were a spiritual guidance. She understood that the truth had destructive power, but concealment was even more cruel. It gnawed at the soul from within. Their dialogue was not just a marital one, but a struggle between protecting a perfect image or save one humanistic truth. Standing by the window overlooking the dark garden, William finally understood the unease in his mother's eyes all those years ago. Diana wasn't just searching for freedom. She was searching for a life that had been lost, stolen by the darkness. Now the storm was no longer outside the window. It had moved into the heart of the air. William made a fateful decision. The palace's secrets would no longer be sealed by fear. When a prince dared to call his forgotten sister by name, that was when old order. It began to crumble, giving way to the light of justice and kinship. The Norfolk sky was tinged with silver and gray, a space where peace and profound sadness intertwined. Inside Anmer Hall, William sat silently watching the raindrops like tears of time stream down the glass. He was no longer a desperate boy searching for the past. He had become a guide, The promise to find the sister in the darkness was not only to fulfill her mother's dying wish, but also to affirm that in this world no darkness is thick enough to obscure the call of one's own blood. Time may fade memories, but it can never completely erase them. Frequency of kinship. When a letter arrives from a discreet law office in London, it's not just pages of paper. It's the echo of truth, breaking through the perfect facade of the present. Each line carries the weight of a reality denied for decades. The confidential medical records date back to before his birth. Confronted with those words, William was no longer a symbol of power. He became a man on the threshold of awakening. A decision was made in absolute silence. No advisors, no press, only the sincerity of a son searching for the lost soul of his mother. Imagine a peaceful morning in a remote countryside where time seems to have forgotten the harsh rules of the imperial court. In a corner of an old, misty cafe, a moment, the intersection of destinies. It happened. The moment William looked into the eyes of that stranger, the whole world around him seemed to vanish. It was the blue of the sea, of the sky, and of a woman who had once been the rose of the world. That shade of blue is gentle, profound, and carries the warmth of a mother who has never given up hope. She looks familiar. Those words were not merely a formality. They were a recognition of blood ties after years of being separated by silent walls. As twilight fell, that small cafe became a sanctuary of reconciliation. William knew that the outside world might never be allowed to know of her presence, for the truth sometimes has the power to shake even the most solid foundations of an institution. But he chose one, the crown of kinship, instead of cold, impersonal decrees. You will never be alone again. I promise. That affirmation was not only for his sister, but also for Diana's soul, watching from some distant place. The two lost pieces of her life had finally found each other amidst the darkness of history. Back in the reality of London, William sat at his desk in a room filled with the golden hues of nostalgia. Before him lay a blank sheet of paper, and in his hand, a trembling pen. He had spent his life learning to speak prepared words, but tonight he had to learn to write his own truth. The burden of the past, the awakening of the present, and the promise to the future all weighed heavily on the heir's shoulders. The page was still blank, but his heart was full. This was no longer a royal secret. This was the final chapter of a journey of rediscovery. Forgotten love. In the absolute silence of the office, when the clamor of duty and fame had faded behind the heavy wooden door, a new chapter was being written. This is not a royal decree, not a document for historians or the press. It is the testament of the heart. William wrote this for his future successors. He began to write slowly and carefully, as if drawing threads of memory from the deepest corners of his soul. He wanted his children to understand that behind the dazzling brilliance of the crown lay quiet truths, pains transformed into compassion, and a grandmother who had loved them with a lifetime of storms. William told his children about an absent member. In the family photographs, a woman lives far from the camera lens, anonymous to the world, but eternal in his blood. He taught them that the true meaning of kingship lies not in power or absolute perfection. It lies in humanity, in the capacity for empathy, and above all in the power of pardon. Every word he wrote down was a release from the burdens of the past. He hoped that when his children were old enough to turn these pages, they would not see a scandal, but a journey, healing the cracks of destiny. Beyond the cold stone walls of the palace, Truth lay within, living a peaceful life on the edge of the waves. His sister needed neither fame nor recognition from the crowd. She chose peace, and William vowed to protect that peace at all costs. Every year on their mother's birthday, a secret ritual was performed. 2 bouquets of flowers were always sent. First bouquet placed on the peaceful island where Diana rests in peace. Second bouquet sent to the nameless little house on the Devon coast. That's how William affirmed to the void, "We will always be a family." A connection that needed no public witness yet was stronger than any decree. As night fell, the letter was sealed and placed in a wooden box beside a photograph of Diana smiling in the bright sunlight. William gazed into those eyes that held boundless love and whispered a sentence, a final word, to an era of silence. The truth will set us all free. The burden that had haunted him for years has now vanished. Silence, once a painful weapon, has now become a tool. A space of tranquility. He closed the box, not to bury the secret once again, but to preserve a truth that had been healed. This information is for reference only based on unverified hypotheses and rumors/public opinions. Let's discuss this issue from an objective analytical perspective. Which side are you on in this journey? Key 1. For curiosity and a desire to seek the truth. Key 0 for skepticism and respect for historical secrets. Press, like, and subscribe. Join us as we continue to unravel the mysteries behind the velvet curtain. London, early 2026. Before the first rays of sunlight reached Big Ben, a strange atmosphere seemed to envelop Clarence House. Unverified information was stirring up public opinion about a pivotal decision that could change the course of one of the world's most prestigious families. Instead of the usual social news, insiders were questioning the temporary suspension of an inheritance distribution process related to Princess Diana's estate. Was this merely a simple administrative procedure or the activation of a protective mechanism established decades earlier? In the world of strict royal rules, the existence of a sealed will has always been the subject of speculation. An abstract concept has begun to emerge: the third clause. According to several theories put forward by analysts, this clause doesn't focus on political upheavals or media attention, but rather seems to point to a more fundamental value: the integrity of the lineage. If this scenario is true, then activating it signals that the institution is facing a potentially structurally destabilizing event, rather than just a media frenzy. All attention is now focused on a shocking theory: the emergence of a 29-year-old woman referred to online by mysterious initials. Is there a connection between the present and the late 1990s, when personal secrets were often obscured by the glitz and glamour of the stage? Unofficial sources suggest that a handwritten letter from 1996, allegedly from the late princess, unexpectedly surfaced after an internal audit. If the rumors are true, that letter contains prophecies of divided bloodlines and a crown shaken by seduction. This is a dramatic fictional scenario, a mother seeking to protect her children from dangers she foresaw decades ago. While London is reeling from legal scrutiny in West Hollywood, tense moments seem to be unfolding between the main characters of this story. Images of a thick stack of documents and stunned faces have left the public wondering, Is it time for a long, dormant truth to be revealed? The silence from those involved often provides fertile ground for theories to develop. Could it be that a discrete settlement failed to reach a consensus, leading to the issuance of an asset freeze as a last resort? We are facing an investigation into traditional values, truth, and heritage. These are just pieces of a larger picture, and we have only seen the tip of the iceberg. Is this a necessary purge to protect legitimacy, or merely a compounding of misunderstandings within a family already fraught with turmoil and in a world where information is constantly changing? Do you think the ultimate truth is as important as the choices we make about what we believe? Leave your thoughts in the comments section, and we'll analyze them further in the following developments. Amidst the media storm, a statement rang out, not with the clamor of a fame-seeker, but with an unusually calm demeanor. The central figure in this controversy did not mention the crown, nor did she refer to the figures in the trust funds. Instead, she emphasized a fundamental human right, the right to know one's origins. The information circulating describes a decades-long quest for the truth. I just want the truth to be acknowledged. A simple statement, yet one that carries immense weight, capable of shaking even the most impregnable palace walls. In the age of technology, theories don't just remain words. Observers are buzzing about the existence of a document supposedly showing the results of genetic analysis from a renowned expert at UCLA. If the parameters of 99.98% similarity are accurate, we are no longer simply dealing with a fabricated story, but with a real threat. Biological evidence. It's very challenging. Why would such a crucial document surface at this sensitive time? Is it a mere coincidence of fate, or the result of a carefully planned effort to bring an old secret to light? The investigation takes us back in time to 1995 to 1996, a period when archivists and insiders were scrutinizing every millimeter of the protagonist's timeline. A ceremonial event in Chicago sealed files from ecclesiastical institutions in the Vatican. Theories suggest there were media lulls during this period, coinciding with the time a baby girl was allegedly born in Oak Park, Illinois. If we connect these ambiguities, a completely different picture of the past gradually emerges. It raises a major question about consistency in the public records of celebrities. Can we ever truly know everything about someone's past, no matter how long they've been in the spotlight? Deep within the sealed archives of the Vatican, there are reports suggesting the existence of a file from 1997, a request to revoke past commitments. Theories are circulating about the presence of an unidentified entity within these ecclesiastical documents. If these clues to the past are real, they are not simply old pages of paper. They pose a perplexing puzzle: moral trust and transparency. In the world of royal protocol and international law, inconsistencies between public records and personal reality can have consequences that extend far beyond a simple family dispute. It touches upon the very foundations of immigration regulations, prenuptial agreements, and the legitimacy of a long-standing institution. Deep within the sealed archives of the Vatican, there are rumors of a record from 1997, an application to annul past commitments. Theories are circulating about the presence of an unidentified element within these ecclesiastical documents. If these clues to the past are real, they are not simply old pages. They pose a perplexing puzzle: moral trust and transparency. In the world of royal protocol and international law, inconsistencies between public records and personal reality can have far-reaching consequences extending beyond a simple family dispute. It touches upon the very foundations of immigration regulations, prenuptial agreements, and the legitimacy of long-established institutions. Why is verifying ancestry so crucial? The answer likely lies in the spirit of third clause. This is part of Princess Diana's will. From a hypothetical analysis perspective, inheritance is not just about material possessions, but about the clarity of bloodline. Once doubt is sown, it has the potential to undermine the validity of any claims related to trust funds. This is no longer a battle of the present, but a battle to protect the authenticity of the lineage against unforeseen variables. On January 16th, a blurry video clip allegedly filmed at a West Hollywood cafe caused an online uproar. These images captured not just a conversation, but a fierce clash between two worldviews. Through analysis of body language, one side showed panic, while the other displayed extreme tension. The fragmented words are believed to have appeared in that space. The truth was there before it began. Good, the future of the next generation. While the authenticity of the conversation remains questionable, the emotions emanating from those frames are undeniable. Could the black file the woman carries be the key to unlocking the Diana Protection Fund, a fund currently frozen in a terrifying silence? The character codenamed AM, though never appearing directly on screen, has become the focus of a global investigation. We are witnessing the most serious legal and ethical reckoning in decades. Is this a perfectly orchestrated move to redefine power, or the inevitable resurgence of a truth that has been suppressed for too long? If you held the black file, would you choose to release it to seek justice, or keep it secret to protect the peace of a family? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and follow so we can get to the bottom of this investigation in the next part. In the corridors of British justice, a legal case has just been filed, not seeking glamorous titles or material compensation, but aiming for a more abstract goal recognition of bloodline. If this request is granted, it will create an unprecedented precedent, placing a missing piece right at the heart of the royal succession diagram. The existence of the figure codenamed AM is not just a personal story. It is an entity capable of changing the entire trajectory of the Sussex family. The emergence of these streams of information seems to have created an emotional storm for those involved. There are reports of mental instability, self-reflection on the past, and doubts about the authenticity of seemingly predetermined events. Meanwhile, the absolute silence from the central figure Meghan Markle is being scrutinized by analysts. Is this a tactical move to observe her opponent, or is it confusion in the face of a truth that is gradually emerging? On January 17, 2026, a brief news item in the official Vatican newspaper attracted the attention of royal legal scholars. Despite being written in coded and cautious language, the announcement appears to confirm the preservation of documents relating to discussions from 1995 to 1996. Why would a powerful religious institution like the Vatican retain the spiritual anxieties of the late Princess Diana? Theories are connecting details about a blind Tibetan mystic and warnings about a turbulent future for Harry. Could what we are witnessing today have been foreseen over 30 years ago in a secret meeting between humanitarian groups? Faced with undeniable pressure, the Royal Medical Ethics Council appears to be considering a scenario previously considered impossible, demanding independent verification of biological records. This has been described as a last resort to protect the legitimacy of the royal institution. A truth-checking is underway where traditional values confront modern scientific evidence and prophecies from the past. We live in a time when history is no longer a collection of old pages, but a living entity demanding transparency. From secret Vatican files to a mother's handwritten letters worrying about her child, every path leads to one ultimate question. Does truth always bring liberation, or does it sometimes foreshadow a greater downfall? Do you believe in factual scientific evidence or spiritual warnings preserved for decades? Deep within royal history, the late Princess Diana's secret anxieties about what she called a divided lineage are often mentioned. There are theories that after her meeting with an Eastern mystic, she left behind two important documents. If one was kept by her loyal butler, the other is believed to have lain untouched in the apostolic archives in Rome for decades. The contents of the document, titled Secret Letters Sent Through the Air, are becoming the focus of speculation. The prophetic passages about outward appearances concealing true nature and those who attempt to grasp the crown without its bloodline are sending shivers down the spines of observers. Although the Holy See has not officially confirmed it, the recent opening of rare archives for legal investigations demonstrates the seriousness of the matter. The investigation appears to have extended beyond religious documents to include security matters. Sources suggest that special surveillance protocols have been set up to review the period from 1995 to 1998 in Meghan Markle's life, a period now considered a golden opportunity to unravel mysteries. What is being discovered has the potential to shake the entire media landscape of the Sussexes. The key point lies in a figure from Pennsylvania who is believed to have had a close connection with her in the mid-1990s. Has an old chapter in her life been forgotten, or is it shrouded in a thick fog of privacy? Why have rumors of a past ritual suddenly resurfaced so strongly? The answer likely lies not in ordinary civil records, but in forgotten papers within church institutions. Theories are centering on a request to annul a marriage commitment sealed in 1997 in Chicago. If these documents truly exist and confirm a contradictory lifestyle and the presence of previously undisclosed personal elements, it would completely alter the definition of transparency for modern members of royalty. We stand before a labyrinth of sealed files, prophecies from the past, and high-level security investigations. Each piece unearthed leads us to a deeper question of identity and truth. Should we believe what is presented on camera or the coded messages preserved in handwritten letters from 3 decades ago? If Diana's prophecies are true, are we witnessing the beginning of a downfall or a necessary purge for the future of the crown? According to the strict regulations of ecclesiastical law, sensitive files concerning influential figures are often forwarded to Rome for processing at the highest level. Among these documents, the existence of a confidentiality request is mentioned, a plea for the confidentiality of personal information, because those involved are likely to face the public eye. The issue here is not about the rightness or wrongness of a personal choice, but about the compatible with traditional rules. In the world of royalty, transparency is not just a virtue, but a legally binding requirement. If the pieces of the past, from marriage commitments to the presence of dependents, are not fully disclosed from the outset, it will create a legal domino effect directly impacting the constitutionality of current relationships and international residency procedures. A legal advisor once made a rather cryptic remark: "The issue isn't the shame, but the gaps." The unfinished pages of the main characters' life stories are being pieced together by all parties involved. On January 14th, the presence of a key figure at a leading law firm specializing in international disputes opened a new avenue for speculation. Instead of silence, a multifaceted defense strategy appears to be taking shape. The goal is likely to prevent the spread of documents from the Vatican, protect the biological privacy of future generations, and reshape the nature of the palace's financial freeze. A voice from Hollywood offered a sharp analogy. This is no longer an ordinary game of chess. When the pieces are no longer in the right positions, people tend to want to overturn the entire board. On the morning of January 18th, 2026, history will likely record this as the moment when vigilance shifted to a state of large-scale, coordinated containment. A whisper from a 29-year-old woman became a real earthquake, forcing all levels of leadership to take action. We are witnessing a convergence of classified intelligence records, ancient Vatican rules, and modern genetic analysis. All are coming together to create a moral and legal judgment unlike any other in the modern history of the Windsor royal family. The veil of mystery is gradually being lifted, but behind it lies a new labyrinth of questions. When truth is no longer a single concept, but a synthesis of fragments from the past, what will we believe? Can an established system adapt to unprecedented variables, or will it choose silence to preserve its existing structure? And more importantly, in the battle between transparency and privacy, who truly holds the key to the future? As the legal hurdles from Diana's third clause began to take effect, a new strategy quietly emerged in the corridors of power from Windsor to Clarence House. Observers called this heritage blockade, inheritance lockdown, a systemic response to unpredictable developments from the Vatican and transatlantic legal moves. The focus of this campaign is believed to revolve around the decisiveness of the heir to the throne. On January 17th, an executive directive was reportedly issued suspending all claims and ceremonies related to the Sussex family. This is not merely an individual reaction, but is seen by experts as a self-defense mechanism aimed at preserving the asset's reputation and stability of future generations. One of the clearest signals of this purge is the correction of institutional memory. The removal of a central figure's name from the archives of long-standing royal initiatives sends a quiet but powerful message. While legal hurdles are being set, the family's moral guardian, Princess Anne, appears to be taking on the role of overseeing transparency. A comprehensive audit of funding and donations during the 2020 to 2023 period has been triggered. The ultimate goal of this action is to ensure that the royal institution is not drawn into scenarios they never agreed to. This is no longer a matter of a family. It is a test of a monarchy's ability to govern itself. While legal storms rage behind closed doors, Princess Catherine appears to be playing a long game through the power of symbols. On January 18th, her appearance in a navy blue outfit at a children's hospital drew all eyes. Fashion and historical analysts suggest this is no random choice but a strategically calculated reference to the image of Princess Diana, a silent message of stability, composure, and the continuation of the legitimate lineage is being sent amidst the storm. This battle is not only taking place in legal documents but also in shaping public perception. When the monarchy chooses coordinated restraint and heritage blockade, they stand at a historical crossroads. In the most turbulent times, dignity is sometimes defined by silence. Some sources claim that Princess Catherine made a very impactful statement: dignity is a more enduring language than opinion. This is not merely a conversational phrase, but is considered by observers to be a guiding principle for the dynasty's defense strategy. Within the internal world, heritage seems to be likened to a garden. To maintain its beauty and purity, the gardener not only protects the trees from storms, but also must quietly remove weeds elements that could harm overall growth. The meticulousness in each internal memorandum and the decision to freeze financial privileges were seen as necessary steps to preserve the heritage estate from potential legal risks. As doubts about integrity spread, the monarchy appeared to have established a no-entry, no-exit defense system through 3 new rules, a defining moment of silence. All mention of the figures at the center of the storm has been suspended in official discourse until the issues of lineage are legally clarified. Storage is limited. Joint projects and related digital data are all placed in a sealed state, creating a barrier separating the past from the present. Contingency guardianship scenario. A group of experts has reportedly been formed to examine legal protection options for the next generation in preparation for a worst-case scenario where current legal frameworks become ineffective. This stance represents a dramatic shift from a reactive to a permanent defensive posture. While the walls of London were being reinforced across the Atlantic, a completely different kind of rift was unfolding in the spotlight. The meticulously crafted media image appears to be undergoing a significant erosion. The first domino fell when one of Hollywood's most powerful guardians officially announced the severance of contractual and personal ties. According to insiders, this rift doesn't stem from typical financial conflicts, but rather from a feeling of being caught in a hypothetical storm they never wanted to be caught in. Manipulating alliances is the term being used by the American media as an explanation for this sudden turn of events. A thought-provoking theory about kindness and its limits is circulating among Hollywood observers. Unverified reports suggest that one of the Sussex's most powerful allies has realized a harsh reality: sometimes rescuing an entity in distress inadvertently brings the storm into one's own life. This figure's quiet withdrawal is seen as a red flag for the entire entertainment industry. If these speculations are true, the central figure is no longer seen as a brand asset to be protected, but seems to be shifting to what the business world calls a state of reputation risk. Looking back at media history, people are beginning to analyze a pattern called the Risk Alliance. From the shocking announcements of 2021 to the unusual silence of media giants in 2026, we see a systematic erosion of trust. The once impenetrable walls of A-list alliances now seem fragile in the face of exposed inconsistencies. There are reports of streaming giants and talent management companies undertaking a process they call a risk alliance, reassessing the value of commitment. The fact that audio projects are delayed or publishing contracts are rejected within just 48 hours are pieces of the puzzle that indicate a withdrawal-controlled repositioning is happening on a large scale. In Montecito, the glamour that once served as a beacon of self-repositioning is now shrouded in an ominous silence. No official announcements, no massive campaigns, only the stagnation of product lines and quiet farewells on professional social media platforms. Local reporters describe the situation with the phrase, "The fortress is cracking." When bridges to the throne are broken and alliances in Hollywood crumble, the protagonist must confront a reality they probably never imagined: systemic isolation. The legal actions at this point seem more reactive than proactive, and any silence is being interpreted by the community as tacit confirmation of the prevailing theories. Her silence is being analyzed by the community as tacit confirmation of the prevailing theories. At this point, a big question